Right, good evening. So we're having our very first Instagram Live for the International Legion for the Defense of Ukraine. My name is Corporal Damien Magrou, I'm spokesperson for the Legion, and we received a lot of questions from our little box that we put online yesterday, and I'll try to do my best to answer to them. So we're going to have the first question.
Will there be an opportunity for volunteers to get citizenship after the war?
We know there's a question that a lot of people are wondering about, whether fighting for Ukraine will mean that you have a path to citizenship. Unfortunately, there isn't a clear answer to that at this stage. I know that there are a lot of politicians that are working towards this and are trying to introduce a law to that effect. But obviously that process isn't over yet. So at this stage, there is no possibility to receive citizenship from service in the Legion. I think to a certain extent it will also depend on how the recruit or the legionnaire is willing to keep serving in the Ukrainian army after the end of the war. So this still has to be clarified, but at this stage, legally speaking, there is no such access.
Do you have patches for sale?
So I assume by patches you mean shoulder patches. As you can see, we don't have a shoulder patch for the International Legion. We will make one with this logo, but a lot of the companies doing this in Ukraine have difficulties accessing materials, so it's been difficult for us to order them. But we're working on this. If you happen to be a producer of such patches and you would be able to make them for us, then please do get in touch with us through our Instagram page or any other resource.
Are passports mandatory for volunteers?
So every recruit who wants to come through the Ukrainian border should have their passport with them. There has been some cases of people getting through the border without a valid passport, either because they had a passport that had expired or on the basis of other documents. But this is a very individual question. So if you're traveling to us, if you've passed the application process in your home country and you have been approved by the military attaché from the Ukrainian embassy in your country, and you're coming to us and you don't have a valid passport, please get in touch with us in advance of you arriving at the border, because we've had cases of people calling us up once they're at the border, and then it's obviously a lot harder to deal with it. If you don't have a valid passport with you when you're traveling, please contact us in advance and we'll try to do what we can. But really it's a case-by-case question, so I can't give you a general answer. On the whole, obviously, it would be very much better if everyone had a valid passport with them when they travel. Yes.
Is it true that you must sign a 3-year contract? And if it's not, what is the actual duration of the contract?
Okay, so there's a lot of disinformation going around online about the duration of the contracts. The contracts are not 3 years long, not 5 years long. They are for the duration of the martial law. And martial law in Ukraine is defined as lasting for the duration of the hostilities. And so once the war is over, martial law has been, would have to be lifted. So in simple terms, the contract is supposed to last for as long as the war lasts. Obviously, no one knows how long the war will be. But what I can say is that the Legion has been very understanding with any legionnaires who, for any reason whatsoever, wants to leave the Legion and go home. And we've granted all the discharge requests that have been put through. So in practice, we have not been holding anyone against their will. If they, people might have a bunch of different reasons to change their mind, from the personal to the professional. We haven't either set a specific list of valid reasons for leaving. Basically, we've been granting any requests to be discharged by legionnaires who ask for it. So the quick answer is the contract is for the duration of the war, but there are possibilities to leave the Legion before if you change your mind or if you just wish to leave. We're not holding people against their will, and anyone claiming anything to the contrary is simply spreading disinformation. So please only trust verified information sources. The Legion's official information sources are here behind me. Please don't trust anyone who's claiming to be with the Legion or having been in the Legion and saying things that are incompatible with what I'm telling you here today.
Can I come only for a few weeks, and can you leave before the contract is up? Were also quite common questions.
Well, I mean, this is related to the previous question about the length of the contract, and I'd like to explain why we have the contract for the duration of the war. You have to understand that when we are deploying combat units to the front, we need to have a reliable group of battle-trained, battle-ready soldiers that will take part in the hostilities. And it makes our job so much harder if we deploy a battle group, for example, and in a month's time, because they were only planning to come for a few weeks, half the battle group has to be replaced because some people are leaving within the first few weeks. So generally, I would say, we're not looking for people who just have a couple of weeks or a few weeks of time to give. Obviously, we appreciate that people want to fight and want to come and help us and help the Ukrainian people of any amount of time. That's, you know, the intention does matter, and therefore thank you very much for your interest. But if you only have a month of holiday, for example, and then you have to go back home, then we wouldn't advise for you to come and fight, because the war might well last for longer than a month. And although sometimes reasons happen for people to leave during the course of the hostilities or in the first few weeks after they've come, and obviously we're understanding with people that have to leave, we would rather not starting to plan for these people to leave after a specific date, because we don't know how long the war will be. And so if you only have like a month ahead of you to come and fight, then we would respectfully decline your application. We would rather focus on people that can come and devote the time that will be necessary to win this war.
Are the recruits being paid? If yes, how much?
Yes, so the contract that you sign with the Legion, or actually with the Ministry of Defence, will make you a member of the armed forces, just like any other soldier serving in the Ukrainian army. Excuse me. And so the pay that is given to our legionnaires is the same as is given to soldiers of the Ukrainian army, depending on the rank. So foreign legionnaires can be of any enlisted or non-commissioned officer's rank. That means the higher rank that you can be as a foreigner is a senior sergeant or a staff sergeant. Well, anyway, those are the sergeant positions. There are no foreign officers in the Legion. All the officers are Ukrainian. But the pay that is given to legionnaires is the same as Ukrainian soldiers of the same rank. In practice, for our legionnaires, anything going up to non-commissioned officer roles will be 11 to 15,000 hryvnias per month. We realize that's not a whole lot of money. I mean, in international terms, it would be about 400 to 500 euros. But you do get twice that much if you get deployed and when you get deployed to the front. And it's expected that this amount might rise to 3 times as much as the base pay when you're deployed to the front. So it would potentially, if you're deployed to the front, go up to maybe 1,400 euros, something in that region. We do realize that for a lot of our legionnaires that come from, let's say, countries where the price level is very high, this kind of money won't be enough for them to cover their living expenses or the fixed expenses that they have back home, for example, to pay for a mortgage or a rent while they're serving in Ukraine. We do realize that's a challenge. But it's very important. I'll tie this in with a different aspect that you all have to understand is very important for the Legion. We are coming here to help the Ukrainian people liberate itself from a very from an aggressor that is committing war crimes every day. We're doing this for the principles. We're doing this for Ukrainian victory. We're not doing it for money. Obviously, money is necessary to live, and we understand that people's situations differ, and everyone needs a little bit of money to survive. Of course, we understand that, but we cannot afford to pay legionnaires more than Ukrainian soldiers. And money is not the only reason why we can't afford to do it, because you do realize there's an information war going on, and the Russian propaganda machine is already describing our legionnaires and our recruits as mercenaries. We see this word being written in the Russian media all the time. And according to international law, and I'm specifically quoting here, referring to Article 47 of the first additional protocol to the Geneva Conventions, which defines what is a mercenary. One of the criteria there is that a mercenary is engaged in a non-conflict for financial gain. And we therefore can't afford to blemish the reputation of the Legion by offering more money to foreign legionnaires than we offer Ukrainian soldiers. It's a very important part of protecting the legal status of our legionnaires under international law, to make sure that they are considered as lawful combatants under the Geneva Conventions, and if they're captured, should have the same treatment as Ukrainian servicemen and be treated as prisoners of war. So this is a complicated legal matter. The fact of the matter is we cannot differentiate between Ukrainian soldiers and foreign legionaries in terms of pay, because if we do, it would jeopardize the legal status of our legionnaires, and we believe that's a lot more important than whatever amount in addition they might get to their pay. So I hope I answered to that question easily enough to understand. I'm just repeating it to sum up. Yes, there is a pay. It's the same pay as for all Ukrainian soldiers, and for legionaries, depending on the rank they receive, that will be between 11 and 15,000 hryvnias per month, which is doubled if you're deployed to the front, and might be tripled depending on decisions from the authorities in the coming weeks.
What criteria do applicants need to meet?
Well, the very first and most important criteria we have is that we're looking for seasoned combatants, people who have live combat experience. And I can't stress this enough, because we get a lot of questions about this. Military experience is not enough if you did not take part in live combat, or at the very least peacekeeping missions in hot areas. The reason we are saying this is because we need people to come to us when they're ready to participate in the fight. We don't particularly have very large training capacities at this stage, and so what we're looking for are people who come in and are ready to fight, and of course we'll have some tests and we'll make sure they're suitable for us based on different criteria, but the most important criteria is that when they come in, we should be able to equip them, form them into combat units, and deploy them to the front as soon as humanly possible. Because we need help on the front right now. We don't need it in 2 months' time. We don't need it in even 3 weeks' time. We don't know if there will be a war in 3 weeks' time. We need combatants at the front right now. And so if you have, for example, military experience, you might have been in the military for 2, 3, 4 years, but if you were sitting at a military base, or if you were fulfilling other functions than combat functions, obviously there's a lot of support functions in the military, of which I am one, by the way, that doesn't make you ready to go in the line of fire. And there's a lot of studies showing the amount of people that when the first time they are in a combat situation, have shock experiences, can get traumatized for a really long time, can get frozen on the spot, which is very dangerous in a combat situation, or simply desert and leave the battlefield. So for for a variety of reasons, we're not willing to send people in harm's way and in the line of fire who haven't done it before. So please, I can't stress this enough. If you do not have combat experience from before, please refrain from applying. Please refrain from traveling into Ukraine, because we unfortunately cannot put your help to good use. Obviously, we're very thankful for the intention to participate and your willingness to serve and your willingness to fight. As I said before, the intention to help the Ukrainian people already means a lot, and we're very grateful even for that. But for the effective functioning of the Legion as a combat unit, we would really encourage you to refrain from even applying, and definitely refrain from coming to Ukraine when you don't have that combat experience. And when I say combat experience, I mean having been in live fire. One way that we check this, if you have live combat experience, is by asking, where did you gain that experience? If an applicant is not able to tell us clearly where they gained that combat experience, for example, in a place like Afghanistan, or Iraq, or Syria, or Libya, or Mali, or the Democratic Republic of the Congo, there's a number of examples of hotspots where there have been live conflicts in the past years. And if a potential recruit is not able to tell us where they gained that combat experience, then we will most likely interpret it to mean that you do not have that combat experience and therefore are not suitable to join the Legion. I understand a lot of people get disappointed by this answer, and we do realize that there is a lot of very motivated and probably very capable young women and men who would like to come and make a difference. But I'm afraid joining the Legion is not the way you will make a difference in this particular conflict at this particular time. So thank you for your interest if you're in that kind of situation, but unfortunately we won't be able to put your help to good use.
Is it possible to get a leadership position based on experience?
Well, it depends what you're calling a leadership position. As I was explaining before, officers in the Ukrainian International Legion are all Ukrainians. There's some legal reasons for this, and the instructions that we have is that foreign legionaries can only have enlisted or NCO positions. But an NCO position is already a leadership position. When you're a sergeant, usually you're in charge of a platoon that's anywhere between 25 and 40 people under you as a platoon commander. We have foreign platoon commanders. We have foreign squad commanders with anything between 8 and 12 people under them. So there are leadership positions inside the Legion that are filled by foreigners, and normally who is selected to be a squad commander or a platoon commander is based on personal characteristics, but also based on experience. And therefore, if you have had extensive combat experience in various conflicts, or even in one conflict, and you know how to lead men in battle, then most likely our officers will notice this and appreciate this, and maybe we'll put you in a leadership position within the framework of what I've just said. So yes, there are some leadership positions that are available, but obviously it's all a matter. It's not like experience is the only criteria, right? You might have someone who's participated in armed conflicts before, but for personal reasons or for reasons linked to their character, might not be suitable for a leadership position. And the other way around, you might have people that have only limited combat experience, but for various reasons would be very suitable to have a leadership position. So yes, experience is definitely a factor that will play in. And as I said, there are leadership positions, especially among NCOs, so non-commissioned officer roles, that are available for foreign legionaries. But this will depend on a variety of factors, and the officers will be the ones deciding.
What is the most common nationality in the Legion?
So we get this question a lot, and obviously our numbers are fluctuating, right? It's a pretty fluid situation. We have a lot of people coming in and enlisting every day, and I can even say we have more and more coming for every day that goes. So those numbers might move around a little bit, but one thing we do see is that some of the most common nationalities are Brits, Americans, a lot of Polish people and people from the Baltic states, and to a certain extent we also have a lot of Canadians, particularly Canadians of Ukrainian descent. And well, I'm Norwegian myself, so it was a pleasant surprise to see there's actually quite a lot of people from the Nordic countries, a lot of Finns, quite a lot of Danes, and some Norwegians as well.
How many soldiers are on the battlefield?
I'm afraid I can't comment on any numbers. We don't communicate on this because it's the policy of the armed forces, of the Ukrainian army generally. So if any journalists out there are wondering about how many legionaries we have, I'm afraid I'll have to direct that question to the press office of the presidential administration.
Do you need operational help from people without combat experience?
At this stage, we're only recruiting legionnaires who can go on active combat missions. And that means the answer to this question at this stage is no. This might, however, change in the future and depending on the needs of the Legion. So once we reach a certain size, it is expected that we will have a need for certain support functions to be performed by foreign legionaries. At this stage, we're using a lot of the support facilities that the army, that the Ukrainian army is providing us with. So I repeat, at this stage, no. This might change in the future, in which case we'll make an announcement on these resources and we'll let people know. But right now, that's not the case.
Why don't you ban the use of cell phones or the use of social media between the legionnaires?
Why do we do it?
Why don't we ban?
Why don't we do it? Well, I'll tell you, we have banned it. So the question isn't formulated correctly. We do ban the use of social media in public and any kind of public appearance by legionnaires from the moment they sign their contract, unless it is coordinated with the press office of the armed forces and with our communications team. The reason we do this, and we do ban it, the reason we do this is obviously because legionnaires might inadvertently, most likely, publish information that is dangerous for themselves or for other legionnaires or for the Ukrainian armed forces generally, or that can give information to the enemy about our positions, about our strategic decisions, about our deployments, and so on and so forth. You have to realize that when you take a picture with your phone, inside the picture is embedded something called metadata. In that metadata, there is often GPS information, there's often timestamps, there's a whole bunch of information that can be used and analyzed and then used by the enemy, for example, to target us. And I'll take that opportunity to talk about this because, yes, the Legion is a target for the Russians. We understand this very well. We've understood this from day one because the Russian authorities are, at every occasion they can, trying to portray the International Legion either as mercenaries or as bloodthirsty, extreme right-wing neo-fascists, right? They take every opportunity to try and portray us in this way, and we have to do what we can to counter this disinformation and this narrative. So there's a variety of factors why information from legionnaires on the internet, on social media, or to the press as well can hurt not only the Legion as an institution, but also can hurt actual legionnaires. So once again, we do forbid our legionnaires to use social media and to talk to the press. And the reason for it is simple safety as well as protecting our strategic decisions. And in the instances where we have found legionnaires who have published things on social media, they have been disciplined. In some cases, it's ended up with them leaving the Legion. So there will be consequences if legionnaires don't respect this guideline, and I think all of our legionnaires know very well that's the rule. Whether they respect it or not, it depends on the circumstances. We've had some cases of this rule being broken, but every legionnaire and every person who's thinking to join the Legion should realize that this has a significant impact on our operational abilities, and it can put yourself and your brothers-in-arms in danger. So it's just much better not to do it. We forbid it to do it. But in terms of controlled social media presence, we have had some instances where we have allowed it. And in those instances, it's always because we've coordinated it with the person in question. We make sure that the information that is published is safe in the sense that it doesn't put anyone in danger. It doesn't have a recognizable location that can disclose to the enemy where you or your brothers-in-arms are located. And generally it is approved by the press office of the armed forces as being safe to publish. In that case, there has been instances where we allowed our legionnaires to publish on social media, but the general rule, and every legionnaire knows this, is that it is not allowed, and if they do, there will be consequences.
Can I come and help without joining the Legion?
I'm sorry?
Can I come and help without joining the Legion?
Well, you can't help in the Legion if you don't join the Legion, so I suppose that's the quick answer to this. There are many ways to help the Ukrainian people. Joining the International Legion and fighting alongside Ukrainian soldiers against the Russian oppressors, that is one way to do it, but it's not the only way. And there are many different ways. You can help from back home. You can gather supplies, send humanitarian aid, you can send military aid. I'd like to say a big thank you to some of the donors and the international support groups that we have from around the world, but especially in the United States, who are right now fundraising money to buy equipment for our legionnaires. So back home, there's a number of things you can do. If you come to Ukraine without joining the Legion, my general impression is that it's very limited how many opportunities to help you will actually get. The message that I get from humanitarian organizations that I've been talking to on the ground here in Ukraine is that they have enough volunteers, that what they need are more supplies and not more manpower on the ground. And the instances where I've had people who couldn't join the Legion for any kind of reason, but who wanted to help or wanted to volunteer with an organization, and I tried on their behalf to get in touch with some humanitarian organizations and offer them as volunteers. All of these instances, what I heard back was, no, we have enough volunteers, thank you very much. So my suggestion, because Ukraine right now is a war zone, you have to understand the reality on the ground. It's not a holiday camp. It's not the sort of place where you're going to go and you know, just do a couple of hours of volunteering per day. There is another factor, which is that the accommodation situation in Western Ukraine is very dire. In the city of Lviv, there aren't enough beds for everyone. There are people struggling to find a place to sleep, even when they just pass through the city for a couple of days on their way out to Poland. And so for every international person who comes to Lviv to volunteer or to help, that's one more bed that isn't available for a Ukrainian refugee who's passing through the city. So I understand that that might not be the answer you want to hear, but if you do not have a prospect of actually joining the Legion, then I would actually discourage people from coming to Ukraine just to help, because the chances are you're not going to help, and you will use resources, buy food, use beds in Lviv, which are very much needed for some of the refugees fleeing eastern Ukraine. So please do consider it. I know that the situation might be different in neighboring states, that in Poland, Slovakia, Romania, there might still be a need for volunteers, and the accommodation situation there, I hope, is slightly lighter than it is in Western Ukraine. but definitely I would not advise coming to Ukraine just to help when you don't have a clear plan and you don't have an organization that is ready to take you in when you arrive.
Is it true that the Legion is sending people to the front lines with no equipment and just 10 bullets?
Okay, that is entirely untrue. It's complete nonsense, actually. And I do get tired a little bit of answering the same questions due to a few people who've decided to make themselves sound important and claim random things without any sort of proof or anything to back them up, or anyone else who can back up their words. So please don't listen to disinformation. Please don't listen to net trolls and to people who want to make themselves sound important on TV. That is completely untrue. We never, ever would send anyone to the front who isn't properly equipped and who isn't ready for it. And ready for it means they have the right skills and they have the right mindset. Because I'll say something else right now, which maybe is slightly unrelated. If you're coming to Ukraine and you want to join the Legion to kill some Russians, then please stay away. That's not what we need right now. The International Legion is here to take part in the defense of Ukraine, to liberate Ukraine and make Ukraine free. The way we're going to do this is by being part of an organized army that respects the rules and the laws of war. That is a very important factor. You have to understand that if a Russian soldier surrenders to the Ukrainian forces or to you as a legionnaire, you're not allowed to shoot them. International law says that. And we know the other side is not respecting international law, but the Ukrainian side is very much adhering to the principles of international humanitarian law. And so it's very important that we do not take in people who are coming just to kill some Russians. That's not what we're here for. Sorry, this was a bit of an aside. The question was about sending people to the front without equipment or with just 10 bullets. For obvious reasons, we do not do that. We would rather keep people back behind the lines until they're ready, until they're properly equipped, until they have the proper skills, until they are mentally ready, hold them back, then send them to the front. We're not here to send random people as cannon fodder to their death. That is not why I got into the Legion, and I can assure you that the Legion will never send someone who's under-equipped, under-armed, or under-prepared. So that is also, I'd like to say, one of the main differences between the Foreign Legion, the International Legion, that is part of the standing army, and some of the volunteer battalions that are operating on the front. As you might know, there's a number of these volunteer organizations that fight against the Russians on Ukraine's side. These are independent groups that have their own rules, that have their own leaders, that have their own procedures, and that have varying levels of equipment and armaments. So you have very organized volunteer battalions. For example, the Azov battalion in and of itself is one of the largest armed groups operating in Ukraine in the theater of war. They're very organized, they have their own equipment, they have their own drones, they have their own armed vehicles and so on. That's from the top. And then all the way down, it goes down to some very small volunteer battalions with just 15 or 20 people and just one guy who's decided that he's going to be a commander. And there's everything in between. And if you engage yourself with a volunteer battalion, there's no guarantee that they will have proper equipment for you, that they will have proper arms for you, that they will have enough ammunition, that their commanders will be experienced, stable, and reasonable, wise leaders. And therefore, you do not know where you might end up. There's some battalions, as I said, who are very well organized, and with whom it's probably going to be safe to participate in the hostilities, or well, safe, you can't ever be safe in a war, but that will equip their guys properly and so on. But most volunteer battalions have some kind of varying level of preparedness. and we would not advise to join them because we do know that a number of the volunteers that are fighting on the front in these battalions don't have the proper equipment, don't have enough ammunition, sometimes have inadequate arms. So I've heard stories of people going against tanks who had nothing but Kalashnikovs, and obviously that's not a situation what you want to end up in. The Legion, as part of the army, and I will repeat this once more, never would send anyone to the front who isn't properly equipped and who isn't prepared. We can't talk obviously for some of the other actors in the theatre of war and volunteer battalions and so on, but that is our position and we will hold on to it.
How does recruiting and training work?
So the recruitment process starts, as I said earlier, by you getting in touch with the military attaché at the Ukrainian embassy in your home country. If you don't have a Ukrainian embassy in your home country, then you can go to the website fight4ua.org, this one here, and there is a list of countries with contact details, and if there is no Ukrainian embassy in your country, then there will be the details of a Ukrainian embassy in one of the neighboring countries or the closest Ukrainian embassy to you. You get in touch, you send an application, obviously they're asking for some documents and some information, you send an application, and after a while you will get an answer from the military attaché in that embassy. And if you've been approved by the military attaché, then you will receive information on how to get in touch with us and how to organize your trip to Ukraine. Once you get to Ukraine, you will be taken to a place where you will go through an individual assessment. That is an interview. Those are some tests. Those are suitability tests and experience tests and so on. And if you pass this process and our officers consider that you have enough experience, that you are mentally ready, and generally you fit the bill, then you will be taken to a different place where you will be equipped. Arms will be given to you, you will be formed into combat units, and then as soon as possible, as soon as your combat unit is ready, you will be deployed to the front. So that's about the recruitment process. What was the second question?
Training.
Training. So at this stage, and this is related to what I said about us only taking people with combat experience, one of the main reasons why we only take people with combat experience is because we don't have particularly much time, because we don't know how long the war is going to be, but also we don't have particular resources to do a lot of training of recruits coming in. We do offer sometimes some what we call top-up training. So, for example, if someone comes in that has a lot of experience handling anti-tank systems of various countries, but isn't familiar with the anti-tank systems that the Ukrainian army uses, and those are mostly NLAWs and javelins and at the moment, then we may be able to offer a specialized training for people who already know how to use anti-tank systems to become familiar with the NLAW, for example. That's what we would call the top-up training, and that's normally done quite quickly. But we're not offering a full course of training for people who don't have combat experience from before, so I'm not going to comment anymore on the training process.
What happens to the volunteers who want to leave?
So if you'd like to leave and you've changed your mind, and this has happened before, and we've taken it with a lot of understanding, you need to address a request to your commanding officer to be discharged from the Legion. And at this stage, our policy has been that we have been granting all such requests, and therefore once that request is granted, you are free to leave the Legion's premises and to leave the country. And once again, I will repeat that there's a lot of disinformation going around. It is categorically untrue that the Legion is holding people back against their will who want to go home. It is also categorically untrue that we're stopping people at the border who want to leave the country and grabbing them or sending them back to the front. That is just, pardon my French, that's just bullshit.
Are you providing any support for those who have already left?
Well, To a certain extent, and in the extent possible, we have been providing support in the form of advice, in the form of contacts to other organizations. We've been providing support in order to leave the country in the form of transport. We've been providing food to some of the ex-legionnaires who decided to leave the Legion. But you also have to understand that once you leave the Legion, you cannot be prioritized. My priority, working in the Legion staff, is to make sure our current Legionnaires are well fed, well equipped, well trained, and will do their job properly. My assignment is not to take care of people who are outside the Legion, especially when those people have made the decision themselves to leave the Legion. Then they're not my responsibility anymore, and nor are they the Legion's responsibility. It doesn't mean that if we can do something to help in the individual circumstances with people that we know have been in the Legion, and we can do something, then of course we'll try to help. But you have to realize that won't be the priority, and that we have to take care of our Legionnaires first and foremost.
Okay, last question. How can current recruits get in touch if they need any support or assistance?
So, current recruits who are active recruits of the Legion should have access to a number of contacts, except, apart from their commanding officers, of people that they've either been at various locations with previously, or that they became acquainted with. So the first step, I would say, if you're an active Legionnaire and you need assistance, would be to contact the other contacts you have. In any case, you should feel free to contact us at the communications team on any of these resources. Send a private message on Instagram or send a private message on Facebook, and we will answer to it. And if it's a current Legionnaire asking for help, we'll be sure to answer to it really quick. Very soon, we're also going to communicate a hotline number to all of our active Legionnaires that have been deployed for duty at the front. And that number will be used for Legionnaires to get in touch in case they need any medical treatment, in case they need any translations, because a lot of our Legionnaires have various language skills and sometimes might end up in situations where they need a translation. So we will set up that hotline number really soon. And in the meantime, if any Legionnaire out there needs any assistance at any time, day or night, we're here to help you, and please do get in touch, send us a message, and we'll answer really quick. Also, my name is Damien, and I know a lot of people, of the Legionnaires out there, have my number, so feel free to just call me on my phone anytime, day or night. All right, I guess we're done. Thank you very much for all your questions. I hope this session kind of helped to clarify some things, and possibly also to rebut some of the disinformation that has been out there. We're very, very thankful for all the support we're getting, all these messages of support. Keep them coming. It really helps with the motivation. All the money that's coming in to our accounts. We've also opened 2 cryptocurrency wallets. Please feel free to use them. Very thankful for that financial, moral support. We're also thankful to everyone back home who's posting things about how they support Ukraine. It helps us when we're out here and working really hard, but it also really helps the Ukrainian people to see that they have support all around the world, and that's really important. So please keep that coming. Keep helping Ukraine in any way you can. Donations, materials, humanitarian aid, or even just posting something on social media. All of this helps, and so keep it coming. And thank you very much once again, everyone, for your attention. Have a good evening.